We have our next panel called the Wise Counsel, and this is basically us hearing from three of the biggest legal minds in the country who work across the NBA, the NFLPA, and NASCAR, and they're going to all share how they're structuring contracts and deals that are shaping the sports world. So to moderate our panel, please bring up Charles Baker, the partner and co-chair of Entertainment, Sports, and Media at Sidley, and Zandria Conyers, the senior vice president, general counsel of the Portland Trail Blazers. Hey sis, we had a chance to talk earlier. Nicholes, Levy, Vice President of Deputy General Counsel and Head of Privacy at NASCAR, and Teri Smith, the COO of National Football League Players Association.
I love the way the room clears out when the legal panels come. Applaud those of you who are still here or who didn't recognize this was the next panel.
Be prepared to be wowed.
Let's try to make this interesting, guys. Okay. No, this is going to be super exciting. Between the three of you, we've got decades of experience and insight into our industry. We've been hearing this morning, and I know we'll continue to hear this afternoon about the rising value of women's sports, team investments, valuations, consumer attention. Maybe I'll toss the ball up for the three of you. What have been the biggest changes that you guys have seen with the money, capital flowing into the space, and the increased consumer attention around your respective sports?
Well, first of all, I'll just say thank you all for having me here. It's a pleasure and an honor to be one of the speakers for this very select conference and group of attendees. So thank you very much. So my name is Zandria, and I think probably what stands out to me outside of the obvious that we're all talking about, which is just the rise of women's sports, I would say it's the sophistication and the evolution and elevation of the sports business model. It looks very different than it looked when I started in sports more than 20 years ago. I think we're all recognizing the complexity of the sports business model. A lot of our companies, our leagues, et cetera, are having to think about the enterprise as a whole. For my company, my organization, we have 5 companies that make up our enterprise. That's a lot of complexity and a lot of tentacles that reach across different types of issues. And so we have to be very thoughtful about that. And I think it's very exciting, it's very awesome, but it's a lot more than just the product that we put on the field or on the court now or on the racetrack or on the golf course or what have you. So I think that's one big thing. It is true that sports totally transcends the field of play. It crosses and intersects into so many areas, everything from political landscape to community engagement and investment to capital expenditures and capital investments to social justice, which we've seen a lot from the W players. So to come into the sports world, you have to bring a certain level of sophistication with you now because it is not your mama's sports world. And then the other thing I'd say really quickly, 2 other comments I'd make. One has to do with just the fact that this is a women's sports business conference. Still got work to go, still got work to do. Still got a distance we have to kind of bridge, but I think it's pretty phenomenal because, again, when I started out, there weren't a lot of females doing this. There weren't a lot of females in the front office particularly, and that's a really big evolution in sports. I think what I'd like to see next will be more minority women who are in the leadership and ownership ranks, and I think we have to do a lot more to increase that, but we are on our way. And then finally, I can't remember when I started being able to sit on a panel in front of anybody with tennis shoes on. Like, that was just a no, you can't do that. No heels. So anyway, that's what I'd say.
Thank you so much. It's so good to be here with you all, and I was so honored to be invited to join this panel coming from a non-traditional, non-stick and ball sport. And so when you talk about kind of what has changed, I'm thinking about, I've been in this legal department with NASCAR for 13 years, In those 13 years, various impacts have occurred, whether it was the law changing with respect to gambling, being able to wager on sports legally, and what that requires, thinking about the data, the competition data, that NASCAR is uniquely positioned because you can't just watch our sport and know that data. You have to get that data from us. We have the vectors, we have the measurements. It is just not publicly available. It is our proprietary information that must be licensed. So that has been a huge model for us that has helped us. First-party data. You heard the commissioners talking about data. First-party data, people have really come to understand how important it is. And at NASCAR, we own, 12 of the tracks that we race at. So we have the data for the people that attend our race events. We also have various platforms that we collect that information on. So from a privacy perspective, we've been impacted by privacy laws that have been implemented in the EU as well as the US. And you might say, why do you care about the EU? I said that. But the reality is, for half of the names in our database, we don't have an address. So how do you know where they are? So you need to comply with all of the laws that might impact you, because you have a higher than zero risk that you are impacted by those laws. So that has been really wonderful, because the principles of data are smart. They're just smart on the business side. You don't need to collect everything. Collect what you need. Keep it for as long as you need it. Protect it. Cybersecurity. I've become a cybersecurity expert. AI. I have become an AI expert. I sit on our AI working group. So I have sort of, in my legal practice, have found being curious about new things. I lead our technology legal team. So all this new technology, whenever they come to me with a new agreement, I have to understand the technology. The laws don't really change, but the technology, the data, all those things change, and you have to understand how the interplay between hardware and software and who's owning, who's developing, what's the IP. So you have to be curious, you have to be flexible, you have to be able to speak the language of the people that you're working with. So I would say, in my time, those are some of the important changes that I've seen. And there's so many more to come. Every agreement that I do, if it has a term longer than 2 years, I'm thinking about what might happen in this period of time that's going to impact these rights that I'm offering to this person. Is there some space I need to carve out to be able to exploit any new thing that may come up that nobody's thinking about right now? I negotiate new technology provisions on a regular basis to make sure that if there's new technology that comes up, we're going to be able to take advantage of it. And we're not, you've heard about those contracts where they gave 1% to somebody in perpetuity and they're still getting checks. Yeah, I don't want to be the lawyer on that deal. So I work hard to try to think forward. And I think as lawyers, that is the interesting thing about our roles, is that we can be a partner.
That 1% is not the greatest sports deal ever you want to be known for.
Exactly.
Hello, everyone. Teri Smith. I just do want to also take the time to say thank you for all of you for being here and listening to us, but also Sportico for providing this space. I just think it's really important to always celebrate women's sports and women in sports. So thank you for asking me to be a panelist and having me here. I think both of those answers were particularly comprehensive and affects, sports writ large. So I'll just come at it from the player side and drill down a little bit. One thing Zandria said was sophistication. And that is something that has affected our players, mainly in the area of NIL. So before, we at the Players Association had the pleasure of introducing the players to the business side of the sport. Well, now with the surge of NIL and players being contacted by businesses and sponsors, younger and younger and earlier in their career, we have to pivot a little bit. Our players are more sophisticated. They're more educated about how things work. They have different expectations. So we have to up our offerings or start to frame them differently. So that's been just an interesting impact to what we do. It's a good financial one to have because we're now able to have a little bit more leverage with the businesses like, this isn't your podunk player who will accept, $1,000 for an appearance. This guy's been getting money, and he might make more in commercial dollars than he does in his player contract. So, the ante has gotten upped. I would also say in football in particular, the international expansion has just blown up over the last few years. Jacksonville continues to lead the way by playing multiple games in London. But, again, from the player side, most of it's advantageous because, they have the opportunity to get in market in far and wide places. But from a working conditions standpoint, we have to make sure that our members are being treated fairly and that they're able to actually perform once they get to these faraway places. Brazil is 11 hours from Philly, so we have to make sure that when the Eagles get there, they can actually, get out there and play. So.
Thanks, Teri. And I know you're on the business side, obviously, as COO, but for some of the non-lawyers in the room, can each of you speak a little bit about how you guys interact as counsel with the business side of the organization? In other words, how do you protect the organization without being the fun police and sort of shooting down every diversity-focused and other creative initiative?
Who does that? It's a bad rap.
I'm happy to kick us off. When I saw this question, I thought about something that I say to my business people often. When I think about my role, it's as a partner to the business and to help to facilitate them to be able to do the creative, revenue generating, important things that they want to do in the smartest way possible. So I always say, I never say no. I say yes, but how? And I'm always about thinking about what is the way. First of all, let me understand the thing you want to accomplish. They may come and say, just look at this contract. Let's set that to the side. What is the deal? What are you trying to accomplish? And then I can look at the contract and make sure that you get there. And they make fun of me a lot. They're like, that's not a legal term. That's a business term. I said, yeah, but did you read it though? A lot of times, they're giving me the contract like it's written in Greek. And they've read some terms, but they didn't actually read the contract. So I'm trying to work with my business people to say, you actually need to read like the front part of it. Just to make sure that the terms are what you think they are. So I work with my teams in that way, always available to them. Try to be realistic about time frames. If they need things urgently, I ask them, tell me. Because I just want to be a facilitator with them and a trusted partner. I want to be there early in the conversations. I don't want to be late. So I need them to feel comfortable that I'm not an innovation killer, that I'm an innovation facilitator. This has come up particularly with AI, where we had to get out the gates quickly with a policy to be able to say, we have a lot of confidential information, whether it's first-party data, whether it's competition data, other proprietary information of our company. We don't want you putting that into a public AI model tool that people can prompt on and get our proprietary information. But even after saying that, we know that those tools are engines of innovation and creativity. So how can we utilize them? So we did an enterprise agreement. So we can utilize those tools. So it's just helping them to figure out how they can use those tools smartly.
Anyone else?
We just have a different construct at the union. We have a marketing subsidiary that is wholly owned by the union. So I, too, am a helpmate to the business side. Luckily, I'm not usually put in the position of having to say no, but I do make sure that the efforts that I oversee, such as events and IT, that they feed into the business, make it more efficient, make us more productive. Anything we can do to support the efforts of our folks who are working hard to get that business, I certainly am always ready to, just kind of jump in and figure out, how can we make this better? What can I do to support? I also actually formally sit on the board of our Players Inc., so I hopefully I'm helpful there in guiding the direction of a lot of those business decisions as well.
Yeah, so lawyers get asked this question all the time. And, for me, I think it depends on what your value proposition is within your company and how you want to be viewed and how you want to be received. I tend to, my role at the Blazers is actually much more operational and administrative than it is legal. But I think a big part of that is because I bring a mindset to the company that I'm really a business person first. And I have a specialty in the law. That's just kind of my emphasis, but let's talk business. And so it's very much what Nichelle said. And so, I don't want to throw the marketing team off when I want to start talking about what's our marketing spend and what does that look like, or talking with our corporate partnerships team, and we're talking strategic partnerships and how do we leverage our brand against the potential sponsor's brand to try to get at those community impact things and those financial goals, et cetera. Innovation, absolutely a conversation there. And if ever there was a place where you could come to a screeching halt between a place of no and a place of yes, it would be in the realm of innovation and technology. And so obviously don't want to be that either. And I'll tell you this too, just recently, me and my legal team, we had our strategic planning offsite advance. And I've talked to many people who say, oh my God, you guys do strategic planning with your legal team? And I say, you don't? Because I'm like, we're a business unit, we're an operational unit, just like every other operational unit within the company. And we have to make sure that our goals and our work and our priorities and all the things that we say we're going to accomplish this year align with what our company says are the priorities and the strategic imperatives. And so how will we do that if we don't sit down and we don't plan as well? I raise lawyers because I've either I'm old or I've been doing it a long time, I'm not sure. But in raising lawyers, I do try to raise them with the business mindset first. Let's make sure we understand our clients. And you hear a lot of lawyers say that, like, you have to know the business. And a lot of times what they're talking about is, we got to understand, our sport. We need to understand, sponsorship deals, and, we need to understand, maybe some other revenue functions or whatever. I think much more comprehensively than that. I think much more 360 degrees than that. It's not just about the money that we're trying to bring in, but it's also about what are our values, what are the impact areas that we want to pursue. We've heard a lot of talk about that today, and in that sophisticated new sports model, I think that community impact and engagement has become a big part of it. So I think you just have to be, like Nichelle said, a trusted partner, someone that your client groups, they want to sit down and they want to bring you in and they want to feel comfortable with you, that they're seeking you out. And so I think one of the biggest compliments I get from members on my legal team is, oh my God, I'm overwhelmed. And they came to me and they asked me to do this and now they want me to do that. And I'm like, that's good, that's good. Keep asking, because that means now your clients, they're starting to understand the value that you're bringing into the conversation. And I'd say too, this always sets up a construct that allows lawyers to show maybe a little bit of our creative thinking. I don't think lawyers are typically accused of being the most creative people in the room. Otherwise, we'd be marketing people. But we can be creative because we're problem solvers and we like to think and process. And so the more we do that, the more opportunity we have to sit down with our business counterparts and talk about their world, like Nichelle said, in business terms, in the way that they know it, then the more we're going to be able to come to the table with suggestions and really spur those conversations to get to exactly what Nichelle said. It's not no, but it's how. It's have we thought about, could we do it this way? Have we considered? All those kinds of things that prompt us to maybe possibly be creative and innovative. So those are kind of the things that I think about with regards to how to keep my legal team and my legal practice to a place where we're adding value and certainly not being seen as a department of no. For me, it's more about how we drive the business forward, and it's less about risk and more about just minimizing that risk when we do realize it or we think it's on the horizon.
It's a great approach. We have the same conversations around the law firm and private practice and the sports practice. The earlier clients come to us in our minds, the better. Yeah. The more creative we can be in helping shape the business deal, and the more we can, enable them to achieve their business goals without telling them can't be done. So love clients that come early and love the ones that read the documents.
Could I do a PSA?
Please do.
The PSA from the lawyers on the podium would be, when you come to your lawyer and you say, hey, I have a question. It's a legal question, not a business thing, but it's a legal thing. And it's like, actually, give us a chance. You'll see that we actually want to talk about the business thing, to Nichelle's point. Her and I live a little bit of different lives because I don't see a lot of contracts. And when last week I was asked to look at one, I was like, what is this? I'm like, words on a paper. Who knew? Such a novel idea.
Call me.
Maybe I should. That's what I got outside counsel for. But yeah, talk to us about the business concepts too, not just the legal things, because we do want to provide more value than that.
That's great. Nichelle, I don't know that a lot of folks, including folks in this audience who are more informed in sports and certainly women's sports than most, recognize how many on-track and off-track roles at NASCAR are actually led by women. You mentioned AI and some of your innovations. How has that impacted your efforts to truly rebrand NASCAR as a co-ed sport?
Well, I would say thank you for the opportunity. When we were talking about this conference as the rise in women's sport, I was very excited to be a part of the discussion because NASCAR is the only sport that men and women compete on the same playing field. And we are very honored to have a long history of women who have raced and won in NASCAR going back to the 1950s. Most recently, you guys might be aware of Danica Patrick, who was able to race at the Cup level and IndyCar as well for many years before she retired from racing. But at our lower levels, the grassroots levels, that's really where women are really picking up. There's a team, Venturini Motorsports. In August, they fielded 4 women drivers in the ARCA series, and they have 2 drivers in the top 10 in that series. One in the 2nd place, one in the 4th place. So they are really positioning themselves. And in the 80s, they actually had the first all-female pit crews, and they won the championship. So we have pit crew members who are women. We have 2, actually, that pit together frequently. So, when you go out on the track, you will see women in fire suits, similar to the one I'm wearing today. In fire suits, they will be holding tires, they will be holding wrenches, or they will be driving cars. And then behind the scenes, NASCAR is a family business. It's owned by the France family. When I say NASCAR, I mean the league itself. The company is owned by the France family. Lisa France Kennedy is our chairperson of the company. Her mother was previously a highly involved person in the company, as well as throughout their family. The women in their family have taken on very prominent roles on the business side. Our legal department, our chief legal officer is a Black woman. So in our legal department, we've had a high level of diversity for many years. And that's just, we have track presidents who are women. I mean, I could go on and on. I think it's not so much rebranding as raising awareness. I would not say we're rebranding because I don't think these are new things that we've been doing. There's a continuation of really looking to make sure we're having the opportunity to hear all viewpoints and to take advantage of that opportunity. There's a partnership we did with one of our sponsors where they put out a fund specifically for women drivers to be able to compete, and they fund them to be able to compete. So understanding that although we compete on the same track, we don't always have the same opportunities. So seeking to increase the number of drivers at the grassroots level to help them come up through all of the levels. So we're very excited about that.
It's amazing what you guys have done. I have so many more questions here that I want to get to, but I see that our clock has run down, so would like to thank each of our panelists for a reasonably interesting legal discussion, right? And to you guys for staying. Thank you.